What if I told you the real barrier between you and your full potential isn't your income, your education, or your social status, but something far more intimate and deeply misunderstood? Carl Jung, the pioneering mind behind analytical psychology, believed that the secret to personal power was hidden not in external achievement, but in mastering our most primal internal urges. Lust, in his view, wasn't just a temptation, it was a test. Jung observed that when a person stopped being controlled by their sexual impulses, something extraordinary happened. Their presence sharpened. Their voice carried weight. The world no longer ignored them. It leaned in. This wasn't about mysticism or religious dogma. It was raw, observable psychology. Those who learned to rise above their base desires began to glow with a kind of gravity. They didn't chase success. It followed them. Why? Because energy, Jung believed, was never lost. It only changed form. He called it the Great Transmutation, the process of transforming raw sexual drive into higher-order creativity, vision, and ambition. Unlike Freud, who saw suppressed sexuality as a path to neurosis, Jung saw redirection as a gateway to transformation. He noticed that the people who stood out, the ones who walked into a room and commanded attention without even trying, shared something in common. They had learned not to waste their energy chasing momentary pleasure. Instead, they stored it, focused it, and let it shape something greater. Think of sexual energy like a wild river. Most people let it rush wherever it wants, flooding everything, disappearing. But a few, just a few, build dams. They guide it into turbines. They use it to light cities, write books, build legacies. Jung called this libidinal transmutation, alchemizing base urges into golden power. It wasn't repression, it was refinement. Those who practiced this didn't become cold or lifeless. They became focused, radiant. Their energy, once scattered, became a beam. Their mind clearer. Their goals sharper. They didn't need to speak loudly to be heard, and this realization turned Jung's attention outward to society at large. He began to see that what the modern world praised as freedom was often a hidden trap. The constant gratification of desire didn't liberate people. It diluted them. It made them dependent, distracted, easy to manage, easy to sell to, easy to silence. True liberation, Jung believed, came not from indulging every craving, but from understanding where the craving pointed. That same force capable of creating life? It could build cathedrals, invent science, spark revolutions. Those who mastered it weren't saints. They were artists, leaders, visionaries. And their power didn't come from what they had. It came from what they withheld. Every morning, you wake up with a full tank of something Jung called psychic energy. It's not just poetic, it's the essential fuel behind everything. Your focus, creativity, leadership, clarity. But here's the tragedy. Most people unknowingly burn through it before they've even finished their coffee. Carl Jung believed sexual energy was not separate from your life force. It was its essence. Whenever we dissipate that energy through constant gratification, we're not just indulging a fleeting impulse. We're draining the very power that could move mountains in our lives. Imagine being handed a Formula One race car and pouring out half the gas before the race even starts. That's how most people live, unaware they're operating with only a fraction of their potential, wondering why they can't stay motivated or achieve breakthrough results. Today's world is an energy trap. Scroll through social media for 2 minutes. You've already triggered a dozen microdoses of dopamine. Images, ads, even innocent videos are designed to subtly stimulate and drain. They don't empower you. They leak you. The world has become a factory of distraction, and it feeds off your scattered attention. You might not notice at first, but over time, you begin to feel it. Your goals feel blurry. Your ideas lack edge. Your presence no longer shifts a room. Jung saw this happen again and again. When a person leaks their energy through unchecked desire, they enter what he called the mediocrity trap, not because they're lazy, but because their fire has been reduced to embers. Here's where it gets deeper. Jung taught that every time you give away your energy without purpose, you're not just weakening today's focus, you're shaping your entire future. People who live in chronic depletion begin making smaller choices, safer relationships, duller careers, fewer risks. Instead of creating, they cope. They don't lose dreams overnight. They shrink them until they disappear. This is not just about lust. It's about losing access to what Jung called the transcendent function, the part of your psyche that connects conscious intention with unconscious intelligence. It's where real breakthroughs come from, and it can't function in a mind that's constantly scattered. When you stop leaking your energy and start protecting it, something extraordinary happens. Clarity returns, your thoughts sharpen, your creativity ignites. You begin to feel your presence again. People listen, opportunities notice. Life starts responding to you, not out of luck, but out of magnetic alignment. Jung called this state energetic coherence. It's when all your scattered power finally gathers in one direction. You stop chasing things and things start orbiting around you. Now imagine not just one person doing this, but a generation. Jung warned that when entire societies encourage the waste of sexual energy, they're not just creating individuals who lack drive, they're building cultures that can't lead. People become followers instead of thinkers, dependent instead of sovereign, comfortable with consumption instead of hungry for creation. But this doesn't have to be your fate. Every moment you pause, reclaim your focus, and protect your energy, you're choosing power over passivity, depth over distraction. You're rewriting your path, not by force, but by refusal. The refusal to leak what makes you powerful. The refusal to be owned by momentary pleasure. The refusal to let your potential slip through your fingers one dopamine hit at a time. Let's tell the truth. Most people who say they're addicted to lust are not really addicted to sex or even pleasure. They're addicted to escape. Lust becomes a shield, a reliable exit door from stress, loneliness, boredom, fear. It's not about the body. It's about the silence you're trying to avoid, the numbness you can't name, the ache you don't understand. Carl Jung warned us, when desire becomes compulsive, it's no longer about connection, it's about dissociation. You're not chasing someone, you're fleeing from yourself. And this is where it gets dangerous, because the more you run, the more your nervous system starts to believe that running is safety. You teach your brain that avoidance is comfort, that stimulation is relief, that numbing is living. And slowly, over months, even years, you lose the ability to sit still, to feel, to hold presence without stimulation. You become what Jung feared, a hollow man, externally active, internally absent. Have you ever noticed that after a moment of pleasure, the emptiness gets louder? That's not failure. That's your psyche speaking. Your unconscious telling you this isn't the real thing. Because deep down, you know what you want isn't intensity. It's intimacy, not friction, but fulfillment. Not stimulation, but stillness. The kind of stillness that doesn't scare you, but heals you. But that stillness only comes when you stop escaping. And here's the brutal paradox. The more you chase lust to feel alive, the more dead you become inside. Because lust without depth drains you. It turns the soul into a transaction. And you're not a product. You're a presence. Jung believed that every act of lust, disconnected from meaning, leaves behind a psychic residue. It fogs your instincts. It weakens your spiritual immune system. And eventually, it fragments your self-worth. You start believing that you're only desirable when you're desired, that your value lies in how much you can attract, not how deeply you can connect, that your body is a tool for approval, not a temple of power. This is where shame enters, and shame is the shadow of lust. But here's what Jung would say. You cannot heal what you demonize. Lust is not the enemy. Repression isn't the answer. Integration is, because beneath that desire is something sacred. A longing for union, a hunger to dissolve into something greater than yourself. Lust, in its purest form, is not about the body, it's about transcendence, about the merging of souls, the breaking of boundaries, the remembering that you are more than skin and craving. But to reach that level of sacred union, you must pass through the fire of your own truth. You must face the shadow, the part of you that uses lust to avoid vulnerability, the part that says, I'd rather be wanted than be known. The part that fears real connection because real connection requires surrender. So ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you felt something real? Not aroused, not excited, but present, seen, held. When was the last time you looked into someone's eyes and didn't flinch? If you can't remember, it's time to stop blaming your body and start listening to your soul. This is not about abstinence. It's about awareness. The goal isn't to deny your desire. It's to purify it, to bring it back into the light, to reclaim it from the shadows of shame, compulsion, and escape. to let it burn not as a fire that consumes you, but as a flame that illuminates you. Because once you integrate your desire with your truth, everything changes. You don't chase. You don't fake. You don't fall for illusions. You attract what resonates. You create bonds that nourish. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to seduce, but because you're not afraid to be seen. And that is power. What happens when you stop chasing? When you stop looking for your worth in another's eyes? Carl Jung believed that once a person integrates their shadow, the parts of themselves they once rejected, they no longer seek validation. They no longer need the world to mirror back their value, because they've remembered who they are, and that remembrance is magnetic. Jung noticed something strange. When a person stops giving in to base desires and starts walking in inner alignment, the world begins to respond, not instantly, not loudly, but deeply. Suddenly, opportunities find you. People look to you for guidance. You enter a room, and silence follows, not out of fear, but out of presence. Why? Because when you no longer need to be seen, you become impossible to ignore. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of becoming who you were meant to be before the world told you who to be. And it always involves reclaiming your energy, withdrawing your projections, and facing your inner truth without anesthesia. No shortcuts, no fantasies, just you, standing in the fire of your own becoming. But here's what no one tells you. True power is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seduce. It doesn't beg to be chosen. It simply is, and the world adjusts around it. When you stop leaking energy through lust, distraction, and performance, what's left is clarity, authority, peace. Not the peace of emptiness, but the peace of inner sufficiency. The peace of knowing you don't need to be anything more than you already are. And that, paradoxically, is what makes you unstoppable. Jung saw that the modern world keeps people in a loop. Arouse, distract, exhaust, repeat. Why? Because a scattered person doesn't lead. A distracted mind doesn't rebel. A person ruled by craving can be sold, manipulated, silenced. But a person who has tamed their hunger, that person is dangerous. Not violent, but disruptive. Because they no longer dance to society's tune. They become a tuning fork themselves, setting the rhythm. They don't follow trends. They create movements. They don't seduce. They awaken. So what does this mean for you? It means that your power is not in how much you chase, but in how much you return to center. Every time you catch yourself scrolling, seeking, craving, escaping, you have a choice, not to judge, but to return. Return to your body. Return to your breath. Return to the part of you that never needed proving. Because when you stop giving into lust, you don't just become more focused. You become more free. Free to love without attachment. Free to lead without ego. Free to live without needing to perform. This is not suppression. It's sovereignty. You don't need to renounce pleasure. You need to reclaim your power. And once you do, everything changes. Not because you forced the world to see you, but because you stopped needing it to.